And in this episode of the Victim to Victor podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome MommaFoxFire, a passionate mental health advocate, content creator, and single mom known for hosting the inspirational podcast Even Tacos Fall Apart. MommaFoxFire brings a powerful mix of lived experience, empathy, and dedication to empowering others to be the best version of themselves. Having lived through various challenges, including depression, anxiety, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, postpartum depression, and family trauma, Mama Foxfire has transformed her journey into a mission to raise awareness and break stigmas around mental health. Through her involvement in online communities like Twitch, Discord, and YouTube, she spreads non-toxic positivity and offers support for those facing similar battles. Welcome to the show, Mama Foxfire. So great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on and letting me join you. I'm excited for this conversation.
Amazing. First of all, I want to ask about your name. Is that your real name?
Yeah. Yeah, so Mama Foxfire is my gaming tag. So it started off as Lady Foxfire, which I came up with as a teenager based on some cabins that I used to stay in. And then when I got back into gaming, which we'll probably talk about today a little bit about how that came about, but when I got back into gaming as an adult with kids, I was like, well, Lady Foxfire, I guess I'll change it to Mama Foxfire. So here we are.
I love that. And I just think it's so important to, keep that you know, that that gaming within us because we lose it, don't we? Especially
Yeah.
when we've
Yeah.
undergone some significant trauma, like you have. You have literally undergone, every bit of adversity that any human would ever overcome. And I'd just love for you to, share a bit about your own personal journey with us today.
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned, kind of depression, anxiety. I've been living with that on and off since about 2015. I am still working to heal from and overcome C-PTSD from an emotionally abusive marriage. And I also lived through postpartum depression in 2013 and 2014. So the depression, like kind of the two there's postpartum, and then there's also the major depressive disorder, which is something that I still have. So it's one of those things that you don't want to go through any of that. No one wants to go through any of that. But I think going through it is something that has really helped me grow a little bit. And I've been through therapy. My first exposure to therapy was absolutely awful. I had a really negative experience where my therapist just didn't listen and really pushed the try harder and do this worksheet approach, even in the face of like suicidal ideations and very serious life events that I was facing. So as a result, I stopped going to therapy for a long time. I turned to online places where I could find support groups or blogs or Reddit. Lord, I mean, just anywhere that I could kind of try to find. There was such a lack of resources at that time. Now it's a lot better, which I'm so grateful for. But at that time, there just wasn't a lot. So yeah, I got back involved with gaming after quite a bit of trauma myself and turned to that a little bit with a new therapist as self-care and really kind of realized that some of the things that I was facing and that I was talking about while I was gaming with these gaming communities were things that a lot of people face. Like I wasn't alone. It wasn't just me that has been there. Like, yes, I've been through a lot in my own life, but it's not just me. Other people have been through maybe not the same thing, maybe not the same combination of things, but that a lot of people have been there and a lot of people have faced things and they have their own life experiences that could really help. And as they kind of shared those, it was one of those things that I was like, oh, maybe if a lot of these kinds of things had been around back then, um, I could have prevented some of my own pain, and especially my grandfather. He might still be here today if it weren't for that stigma around seeking help. That is hopefully getting smaller and smaller these days. But so now yeah, like you said, I aim for that non-toxic positivity piece, which is something that a lot of people, they hear that term toxic positivity and they're like, oh, that's kind of a weird one. But the
Yeah.
non-toxic piece is really important to me because I do think that you can't just push the smile, it'll be okay. That's not how it is. Um, but yeah, now I'm raising my kids to be open to talking about their own mental health, and I'm do my best, and every human can only do their best on any given day with the information that they have. So yeah, that's a little bit about my personal journey. I'm not sure what all you want me to go into for that, but that's kind of the long story short piece.
You are. Thank you so much. And yeah, you did. You basically honed in on some of the topics that I'm looking to discuss today. And the first one, which I haven't actually openly discussed on this season so far, is postpartum depression. I mean,
Mm,
it's something that is personal to me as well. And it's something which it wasn't diagnosed, and it was just discussed in like sessions, and
hmm.
wasn't actually an official diagnosis. Could you explain more about your own experience about this? Mm.
Yeah, so I have two kids. My oldest was born in 2009. My youngest was born in 2013. With my oldest, I think I would not describe that as what I had as postpartum depression. I was just kind of feeling a little sad, a little on the moody side, lots of tears, what I would call maybe baby blues is a better description for that. Um, it came and went. I really just chalked it up to you're a new mom. You're dealing with a baby. Like, of course, you're going to be a little moody. Of course, you're going to be a little tearful at times. And it didn't get any worse and it went away pretty quickly. So, when I had my youngest in 2013, I experienced a lot of the same, the sadness and the worry and the crying and the moody. But I was also super overwhelmed. And at that time, I was married. So, I wasn't a single parent at the time where I was with my oldest. And I was just still so overwhelmed and just bone tired all the time. And I thought the difference then was, well, you're also caring for three other children because I had two stepsons at the time and four if you count my at the time husband. So I kind of just powered through my days a little bit. And then at night, I really was left with these feelings of failure and guilt that it just wasn't coming easy to me this time around. Like it wasn't, oh, you're supposed to have all of this down. And I didn't feel like I had all of it down. And so at one of my postpartum appointments, my OB actually asked a lot of questions. And in addition to, how are you healing? How's your body feeling? She asked about things like energy levels and more specific questions about thoughts and like, how's your pattern of thinking? And um, because she asked those questions, I was able to express a lot of the kind of shame and that heightened anxiety. And it really was bordering on panic sometimes. And just kind of talked about how I couldn't concentrate and I would forget things super easily and I couldn't get to sleep and I could barely eat anything. And it was just all really overwhelming. And she said, like, how long have you been feeling like this? And at that point, it had been for more than a month, and I still hadn't talked to anyone about it. And I really felt like I was broken and weak, and like my baby deserved far better, like my family deserved far better. And I, at that point, had just verbal vomited all over my OB. It was like this poor lady is standing there asking these questions. But she immediately was like, hey, that's not normal. And and so she asked more questions and some follow-up questions and asked if I'd heard of postpartum depression. I said, oh yeah, I've heard of that, but I haven't had any thoughts of harming my baby. I haven't felt like I've had any delusions or anything. And she was like, well, that's different. That's postpartum psychosis. Postpartum depression is something that is very real, and it's exactly what you're describing. And so we talked about it a little more. She described an antidepressant that was compatible with breastfeeding, and something just kind of clicked. And it was like, okay, she said, if you could just talk to a few more people, talk to a few moms in your life and ask if they had experienced anything like that after they gave birth. Because she said it's more common than you think. And if your family has been there too, they want to know what you're going through and they want to be there to support you. So I went on an antidepressant and I talked to my mom, who was immediately supportive and glad that I was getting help and reaching out for that support. And I talked to some coworkers who had kids, and so many people were like, "Oh yeah, I had postpartum depression too." If I hadn't brought it up first, no one would have talked about it. So a lot of them had experienced these very similar things, and not one person had mentioned that while I was pregnant or after I gave birth or anything. I'm sure at some point I was probably handed a flyer on postpartum depression from the hospital or whatever, but
Wow.
who looks at all the materials that they give you in the chaos of having a newborn? You're not going to sit there and read a pamphlet. So, as with kind of the rest of my sharing journey, I guess, it really just amazed me how many people had been through something similar and just never let on that they had been through that struggle. But then like I said, once I talked about it, then they opened up and they shared their stories in it. And that their sharing back to me made me feel a lot less isolated and a lot more supported. Even if the response was just, girl, I've been there. You're gonna get through it. I got through it. You're gonna get through it. Here's some things that helped me. And the medication also helped within a week. Like it was incredible. And the difference between postpartum depression and major depressive disorder for me is that my postpartum depression was immediately responsive to medication. My major depressive disorder has never been responsive to medication. So, but when I tell you, like, it felt like a miracle when those meds started kicking in. It was like the pressure lifted off of my chest. When I went in to follow up with my doctor, I gave her a big hug. I finally felt like I was going to get through it, and like I had hope that one day that feeling would just turn into a knowing that I could and would thrive as well. So, yeah, postpartum depression is something that not a lot of people talk about, but it is one of those things that once you start talking to other moms, a lot of the time they'll either talk about some baby blues or legitimate postpartum depression. And I had a misunderstanding that I thought postpartum psychosis was postpartum depression, and it turns out that's not true. That's something totally different. So I had no idea at that time.
Wow, so interesting. And do you know what? It's amazing that you felt the effects of the medication so much. I mean, and that's something that else that comes up is the fact that the medication, it numbs you. How did you feel about it yourself?
I mean, so with what I was experiencing, I needed that a little bit. I was feeling, I think, too much of the negative, and I didn't notice it numbing any of the positive feelings that I was feeling. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I have no more love for my baby or anything like that. I didn't get any of those. It just really tamped down some of the sadness and hopelessness that I was feeling, which were the predominant feelings that I was going through. So in my case, that's something that I definitely needed. And yeah, I know a lot of people experience those things quite a bit differently. So I would say just work with your doctor for sure. And if one medication is making you lose too much, there are other ones out there. And there are ones out there that are compatible with breastfeeding. If you're not breastfeeding, your options are way wider. Of course, encourage you to do what's right for you and your baby. But there's options out there no matter what path you're taking. So yeah, and just be honest with your doctor also, because if you don't tell your doctor, oh, this one is making me feel a little too little, uh, you know, how is she going to know to change that up for you? So yeah.
True, true. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, no, I think it's very inspiring, that you pulled through that and it was a positive experience in the end. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
salute to
It
you.
it did not feel like a positive experience at the time.
No, I can
But looking
imagine
back
it.
now, and that's something that's a lot of the things that we go through in life are just you go through something that's incredibly hard and you think I'm never going to survive this, I'm never going to get through this. And then a year later, 2 years later, in this case, my he just turned 11 not too long ago. So like 11 years later, I can look back and go, yeah, that was a really positive experience because I got to connect with so many people around me over something very specific that they had been through, that if you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about. And so it definitely brought me closer to my mom a little bit. And yeah, looking back, it's like that sucked, but I made it through. So
Oh, amazing. So, and I think about the medication, it increases the serotonin levels, doesn't it? The feel-good hormones in the
mhm.
body. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
know that, for those who don't want to take medication, there's other ways that you can actually
yes.
increase that, like 5-HTP, and there's like L-tyrosine. There's a lot, isn't there, which you can kind of
Hmm.
buy herbal wise to
Yeah,
do that
yeah,
as well. So, so I think, yeah, definitely go see your doctor if anybody is struggling.
yes.
First of all, first point of contact, yeah. And you mentioned about major depressive disorder. Can you
Mhm.
describe that for my listeners who may not be aware of what that is?
Yeah, so major depressive disorder is kind of a more of a general. It's not brought on by something specific necessarily. There are lots of subsets of chronic depression, and it can be anything from like I really am struggling to get out of bed. In my case, I am what they call high functioning, which I hate that term because it's like, yeah, of course I'm high functioning. I'm a single mom. I have no choice but
Yeah.
to get out of bed and go to work and do all of these things because I have to make a living. I have to pay for the house. I have to pay for the food. I have to do all these things. So, in some ways, I hate the term high functioning. In other ways, it's because you can look at someone and be like, oh, there's no way she's depressed.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. Um, but yeah, I went through a period, especially leading up to my divorce, where I had very severe depression, and it's not as severe now, but it's one of those things that, you feel like again, this sense of hopelessness and just this feeling of being dragged down, like you're physically weighted down. Or in my case, I won't say that this is the case for everyone, but I felt like I was very physically weighted down and like couldn't get the motivation to do things beyond the absolute necessities, going to work, feeding the kids, feeding myself wasn't always something that made that list. And it definitely impacts you because then you don't want to go out and do anything fun because you're like, no, that takes too much effort. You don't want to get on the phone and talk to a friend that takes too much effort. You don't want to do anything for self-care. So, if your self-care is reading a book, it's like the effort of picking up my book and reading it is going to take too much. I would rather just sleep. And I was sleeping a lot and I was um, every chance that I got, I was like just sitting and not doing anything. And in some cases, you need that rest and rejuvenation. In my case, I really needed to be doing some things that were better for self-care wise. And so depression's going to hit everyone a little bit differently. I did try some medications to try to kind of lift me out of it. In my case, I also was experiencing some suicidal ideations, very passively. And you just gotta work with your doctor again, work with your therapist, work with your doctor, see what works. I tried several different medications and none of them were really, some of them would give me kind of this like false feeling of, okay, I can get up and do stuff, but then they would leave me in other ways feeling worse. And so it depends on what works for you. But yeah, there's lots of different subsets of depression. It's not just, oh, you can't get out of bed. If you're depressed, you can't get out of bed and that's it. There's lots of different ways that depression can hit you.
Oh, no, thank you so much for explaining that for anyone who was unaware of major depressive disorder. That's really helpful. And you family trauma as well, when it's
Mm.
a grievance or, a loss of somebody. How did you manage loss? How did you heal?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we all experience loss. We all experience the loss of a loved one throughout our life. That's just a part of the human experience. And in my case, of course, I've experienced that. I have two tattoos. One of them is this one right here. I have more than two tattoos, but two tattoos that I bring up all the time. So this one is a handlebar mustache, and that's in honor of my grandfather who died in 2019 to breast cancer. So obviously that loss was a very traditional, I guess, loss, even though men's breast cancer is not talked about a lot. It is something that happens, and losing a loved one to cancer is something that happens quite frequently as well. And then this one is a fire axe. And this is in honor of my grandfather who went missing in 2017. And that loss was a little bit different because, having a loved one go missing, like the phone call that I got whenever I was away on a trip, I got a call from my mom and she was like, your grandfather is missing. And I was like, what do you mean missing? Like, what does that even mean? And I very much froze inside myself. And it was as time went on, just the complexity of the situation and, going out there and you are grieving a loss. We didn't have answers until actually last year as to what had happened. They found his remains in 2023. So we went for, what is that, 6 years without answers and having to apply a grieving process when you still don't have answers is super intense, especially when you have different family members reacting in different ways. Some family members absolutely refused to believe that he was gone. We didn't have a memorial service. We didn't have anything like that until his remains were found. And so having to go through that and um, have your world kind of rocked by that is something that is really, everyone's going to react differently to it. Just like with depression, everyone's going to react differently to that. Some people picked up a cause. I have some family members who now, what is it called? They not foster. I guess they foster search and rescue dogs now as a result because we had so many organizations performing these searches with different dogs and everything that they got to know them. I have some family members who got divorced because of it. I have some family members who became really close with some people. I have some family members who were absolutely removed from the picture and everyone refuses to speak to them because of some of their behaviors. And so some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to drugs, some people turn to all kinds of different things. Everyone's going to have a different reaction to the same situation. In my case, I got to become much closer with my sister as a result of that. And that is when I started gaming again. So I had stopped gaming since I got married. My ex-husband just didn't really like it. And it was a large part of the abuse there as well, was kind of that loss of a lot of my self-care type things. But hanging out with her and we talked on the phone every day. And it was one of those things like we're both experiencing this. We didn't live super close to each other, but the one way we could bond was over gaming. And it was one of those things that you do what you need to do to survive at the time. And then again, later, you're going to figure out what it is that you need to do to then go back to a state of normal. And in my case, it was now my normal is I talk to my sister pretty much every day. and and we hadn't been talking a whole lot. So
Yeah.
it was a really natural progression to get back into gaming with her. And that is also what kicked off my mental health advocacy journey was I was gaming and we were talking together on a program called Discord, which is kind of a community platform. And we would have all these other people coming into the call and we would be talking about what we were going through. Obviously, we weren't just talking to each other. We would have other people and they would be asking us how we're doing and everything. And so it was less about escaping reality and more about kind of finding that camaraderie through a community. And a little bit about escaping reality too, right? Like that's kind of a little bit of what gaming is for. But even people who hadn't been through something similar were absolutely willing to listen and then reciprocate by sharing things that they were going through and talking about whatever they were, whether it was a breakup or, somebody just talking in general about their work or whatever situation they were going through. It really brought kind of that social aspect to my life where it had been hugely missing because of the abuse that I was experiencing. I was very, very isolated at that time. And this took me a little bit out of that isolation without increasing the abuse to too much of an extent at that point. So yeah, I mean the trauma was really intense. It was really scary and it was very, very dark. Our whole family went through something incredibly dark. But there are bright spots that come out of that, and it really helped shape my approach to my own mental health care and kind of the evaluation a little bit of what I did and didn't need in my life at that time. So it was hugely helpful. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
No, yeah, and I think yeah, you raised a point there where that your ex who was abusive, I guess because of his controlling nature, he prevented you from actually fulfilling your self-care. He wouldn't let you game, and I just think yeah, that's just huge toxic relationship right there. So yeah, I just
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't a lot of that, what he did, gaming was a very small, very initial part of it. That's just one drop in the bucket. By the time I got divorced, well, even by the time I got married, I had no friends anymore. I was very isolated from my family. Where before I had been very, very close with my family and now again, like I'm kind of back where I was before, but I would spend hours with my family and we would all get together and just hang out. And it was something that we would go and he would have such a reaction to it that we wouldn't stay for more than 30 minutes. And it also isolated my kids and it isolated me. And I, wouldn't go out with work colleagues even. There was a lot. There was a lot there. The gaming is just one piece of it. And I know that's kind of the only thing that I've talked about here, but I want to make it really clear, like if you don't like your partner gaming and you'll have a discussion and you don't game anymore, that's not necessarily abuse. That's not what I mean.
No.
You know what I mean? So in my case, it was a piece of it. But that is not what I am intending to imply. There's a much larger context there, right? You should always have a conversation with any partner about what you're comfortable with. And if you need to draw some boundaries, that's fine. But not necessarily, taking something away from someone is a really difficult thing to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you for clarifying that. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so one of your missions is to spread non-toxic positivity. So what does that term mean to you, and how do you actually balance positivity with acknowledging the real struggles?
Yeah. Happy to clarify this because it's not a super common term, right? And I am a very positive person in general. I try to be very realistic about things as well, but there's absolutely benefits to being optimistic and doing some positive thinking, and I am not trying to imply that there aren't. There is also a huge difference in saying just be positive, right? And kind of coming to grips with the reality that every moment and every day is not going to be sunshine and roses. You are not going to be happy in 100% of your 24 hours of the day. That's not how life works. And I alluded to this earlier, but there's a very real tendency to say it'll be okay when someone is hurting, when someone is going through something, it will be okay. And or to want to help them in some way or suggest some things. And a lot of the time you'll hear like, oh, have you gone outside today? Have you been drinking your water? Have you had anything to eat? And those are very, very definite things that you absolutely need. But when someone is experiencing depression, saying go for a walk, that's nice, but it's not going to cure my depression. And people who make those kinds of suggestions are not being ingenuous. They're just trying to help, or they're coming from a place of not really understanding what you're going through because they haven't experienced what you're going through. They are not walking in your shoes as much as they could try. And rejecting all of the difficult emotions and saying you should always be smiling, always be positive. Fake it till you make it is another really big one. It's very false and it's very impossible because we do all experience those unpleasant things in life, and those things need to be felt and they need to be dealt with openly and honestly within yourself, if not with others, for your own mental well-being. So non-toxic positivity to me is really encouraging people not to pretend that everything is or everything will be okay. It's encouraging them not to minimize or deny the existence of extremely human emotions that happen to not be positive or happy. Because people going through trauma need to be told, I needed to be told that what I was feeling was valid. And when you are told, oh, you're sad, have you tried XYZ? It's like, so I'm not allowed to be sad? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is that I'm not allowed? Have I tried pulling myself out of it because I'm not allowed to be sad, because I'm not allowed to be hurt, because I'm not allowed to be angry? And so if you're going through something like that, you really just need to be told, hey, I'm not judging you for what you are experiencing. I am not judging you for not maintaining a positive outlook. I am I am here to listen. I'm here to accept what you're saying, and I'm here to let you be honest and open and celebrate you for being able to be honest and open and doing what you can to survive. So it's really just listening, being there for your friend no matter what, acknowledging that what they are going through is hard. Say, oh, dude, that sucks. Even just saying, like, oh, dude, that sucks, instead of, oh, dude, what are you doing to feel better? And kind of asking, how can you help? instead of just automatically suggesting these things that everyone wants to suggest. All of those are ways to kind of be a positive light to someone without forcing them to be positive. So you're just kind of there to hold that space for them and give them that grace to grow through whatever they're going through because it's hard.
It is hard, yeah, absolutely. And yourself, you've been through a lot of ups and downs. What are some of the key coping mechanisms or strategies that has actually helped you to remain resilient?
Yeah, so gaming, I mean, we talked about that already, right? That's the one thing that I picked up as self-care, and my therapist really encouraged me to treat it as self-care as well. And so of course, there's a way to have it be the opposite of self-care, right? There's gaming addiction and those kinds of things. And you don't want to have it be just like with exercise, right? You can overdo it on exercise as self-care. So there's lots of different ways that you need to monitor and check in with yourself and everything. But gaming for sure is one of those things that I use both as a coping mechanism and as self-care. It is a little bit of escapism. It is a little bit of like that community and hopping on with people who enjoy the same kinds of things as you. But also therapy. Like I said, I started with a terrible therapist and who I went to 5 sessions with and then decided, wow, therapy is stupid and I'm never going back. And I basically white knuckled it until my grandfather went missing in 2017. I went back to therapy in 2018, early 2018. So I decided to try therapy again at that point because of that, but also because I found out that my ex was having affairs. And so to kind of deal with the fallout from a couple of different things in my life, I did decide, hey, I'm just gonna, even if it's someone who's just giving me worksheets, like I need to feel like I'm doing something to address this. And so I happened to find the next therapist that I found was amazing. She was awesome. She legitimately saved my life. Like that's one thing, therapy, I cannot stress enough. If you go to therapy and you're like, ew, therapy is stupid and it sucks, I'm never coming back, just try a different therapist because it hugely makes a difference. But
Yeah.
also just talking to people, talking it out with friends, have some close friends who know you really well and are willing to hold that space for you. Always get consent to dump on them because, if you go in and you're like, hey, I've had something major happen. Do you have time to listen instead of just calling them up and starting to dump on them? But having a couple close friends who are very rarely going to say no to that is really important. And I tried things like journaling. Journaling's really not for me. And I used to do a lot of nail art. Now I just paint my nails. They're a very pretty color today. But I used to do a lot of nail art because it was something that I could do even while I was still married. That kind of took me to a little bit of a safe space in my own home where I had very few safe spaces. And so, find what works for you. It doesn't have to look like traditional self-care. It doesn't have to look like traditional coping mechanisms. You can find what works for you, and it doesn't have to be super traditional. But yeah, I would say that probably my top three were having some close friends I could talk to, gaming, and therapy.
Wow. That is, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. And nail art, you're right. It's just the creativity. It's so healing. Just
Yeah, yeah,
getting into your creative space and that zone. It's just takes you somewhere else, away from your
yeah.
thoughts and away from, your emotions for a little
Hmm.
while. Yeah, so amazing. Thank you. And how about for because I know that you go onto Discord. Do you still use that platform a lot and Twitch as well?
Yeah, yeah. We have a great community in Discord, and it's one of those places that you can go, and if you're having a bad day, you can just rant. We have a channel to rant about it. If you want some peer support, you can go in there and get that peer support. But also like people are constantly posting memes
Oh,
and having more serious discussions as well. But it's a place you can go and you can find some laughs, and we talk about all kinds of different games, types of games, and that sort of thing too. But yeah, I'm in there every day talking to different people. It really does help lift me up for sure.
oh, wow, that's amazing. And so for people who don't know what they are they just communities for connections and to meet
Yeah,
people?
so it's a very you can find a probably a Discord community for just about anything that you're into. It doesn't have to be gaming. It could be just mental health. It could be just friendship. There are role-playing servers as well for people who want to go and do some like D&D type stuff or yeah, there's a Discord for just about everything. You can have just private messages where it's just like one person, or you could have like ours has like 200 people in it where it's just constantly going. I don't know, there are some like community ex exploration features where you can find a different type of community if that's what you're looking for. But a lot of folks will have one that they would recommend, and you go in and find the one that fits for you. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
there's text chats. You can also hop into a voice chat. I do all my interview video calls on Discord because it's free also, which is nice. So yeah,
it
it's really great.
is excellent. Yeah. So, and what's next for you? Any future goals or anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, so my podcast is Even Tacos Fall Apart, and I just started uploading videos to YouTube again. In addition to I do live streams on Mondays where we talk about different mental health topics every Monday. And I just started uploading those as YouTube videos so that you can catch kind of the past ones as well. And that's something that's taken me quite a while to really commit to it, and I'm excited about it. I restarted the podcast in 2023. And so just now in late 2024, kind of starting to do that. But other than that, we have new topics and conversations with therapists and folks who have stories to share every Monday with podcast episodes released on Tuesdays and YouTube episodes released on Thursdays. Um, and I update my website every week, which is tacosfallapart.com, with new content, new resources, and the archives of everything and the descriptions of everything. So I think that's the main thing that I'm excited for future wise is the just trying to maintain that consistency with YouTube. It's a commitment because there is a lot of editing that has to go into it, but I think I'm there. It's taken me a while, but I think I'm there finally.
Amazing. It is. It's a lot of work, you know,
Yeah,
like
it
having
is.
this platform and just being omnipresent as well.
Yes.
So it is a lot of work. So and well done. And you're also being a mom as well as doing all these amazing things. How do you manage that?
So I mean, it's one of those things that a little bit you do what you have to do, right? So
Like,
I definitely just encourage my kids to feel what they're feeling, being a mom and doing all of this. And I do have a full-time job and all of that as well. So being a mom and doing the podcast, it's kind of the only thing that I have that commitment for on Mondays, where my kids know if you
yeah,
come through that door while I'm doing an interview, I'm kicking you back out.
wow.
But I think it's healthy for them to see like mom has something that she does and mom has something that she's passionate about and that she's really committed to. So but yeah, I we have something every day. My 11-year-old has 1,000 different activities that he's in. My 17-year-old is about to be 18. He's applying to colleges, and so there's a lot of school stuff that we're dealing with. And he's got a girlfriend and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. So kind of preparing to get him off to college and get him graduated and
Oh,
all of that. But yeah, it is partially you do what you have to do to get through each day, most definitely.
yeah.
But then the other part of it is just being honest with each other as a family unit and saying like, hey, I need an extra hug today, or I'm not feeling great today. And I make sure to communicate with my kids, like if my energy level is down. I just recently had a back issue, and yesterday my 11-year-old wanted a piggyback ride to bed, and I was like, okay, I'll give you a piggyback ride, but you can't jump up on me. Like you have to get on gently. And so it's little things like that because then he was like, "Oh, I didn't know your back was hurting. Never mind. We can just walk to my room." And I gave him an extra hug. So just being willing to communicate, "Hey, I've had a bad day. I'm not at my best. We're going to order pizza, and I just want it to be kind of a chill evening, and I hope that's okay with you guys." And then making sure they know that it's not about them also, because I have a lot of moments where my work is very intense. And I just recently went through a major ordeal at work. And one day my 17-year-old came home and I was not yelling on the phone with someone, but a very intense conversation. I had my office doors open and he came in later and he was like, Mom, is everything okay? I was like, hey, everything's fine. My job's not at stake. Like nothing you need to worry about. I'm happy to give you as many details about what just happened if you want. But just giving them that reassurance that like no matter what they see or hear, I cry a lot.
Yeah.
And so like we'll be watching a sappy movie or something and yeah, we've got tissues all over the house, but making sure they know if they come home and I'm crying or something to explain at an age appropriate level and with whatever level you're comfortable sharing what it is that you're upset about or if you're mad about something. Had a situation just well, not recently, a little while ago, but I was having one of those days. I call them Princess and the Pea days, where just I stubbed my toe, the pots and pans fell out of the cabinet. I was having a bad day at work. I woke up just grumpy. I didn't get enough sleep the night before. And when in the evening I went to cook and I opened the cabinet and the pots and pans all fell out, I took a step back and I walked out the front door and I slammed the front door and I screamed into the void for a second in the front yard. And I came back in and both the kids were like,
Yeah.
"Oh." And so I had to, kind of be like, "Hey, I want y'all to know yes, my frustration level is like above my head right now, but this is not about you. This is about me and how I'm feeling right now. So, just making sure that you're being honest with each other about what you need and how you're feeling, is what I try to do. And I think it works mostly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
We'll
definitely. I
see.
feel
We'll see when they're adults and they're in therapy themselves and they
Ah!
come to me and say, Mom, you really screwed me up. Like, all
Oh
right, we'll
no.
deal with it then.
Always the moms and dads' fault, isn't it? It's like-
hmm Absolutely. I joke with my 17-year-old all the time because he is in therapy for some other things, but I joke with him all the time, oh, I've got to give you something for therapy, so you better go do your chores. Mom makes me do too much around the house
Yeah,
is a good one. So
it's a good one.
Uh,
Oh,
but
man.
we laugh together a lot, and I really do think that it just comes down to as much as possible being open and honest with each other.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And we're allowed to have those moments of frustration and
Yes.
screaming. It definitely helps. It helps me. And then just that one scream just lets it out and then I'm fine.
Yes. Yeah,
And
exactly. Exactly.
even though it might traumatize everyone else in the house, but it's fine.
Yeah. Hey, as long as you can come back in and be like, don't be traumatized. That
Chill.
wasn't about you.
Exactly, exactly. Just venting. We're just venting. We're allowed.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
No
Absolutely.
toxic positivity. Love it. Oh, lovely. So where can my listeners find you?
So I am Mama Foxfire pretty much everywhere. I'm Mama Foxfire on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, where I'm even on Threads. Although, if you find me on Threads and you see that I don't post very much, I forget that I have Threads sometimes. I'm trying to get better about that. And then the show is Even Tacos Fall Apart, and that's on Spotify and YouTube as well. And on Twitch, I'm Mama Foxfire also. But if you search for Even Tacos Fall Apart, you'll find me. And if you search for Mama Foxfire, you'll find me as well.
Oh, perfect. Oh, thank you so much, MommaFoxFire. You've been an absolute legend today. Just, you hit home on some real important topics. And yeah, I just feel like you're just doing such an amazing work out there and keep at it. And yeah, my listeners, please do follow MommaFoxFire and please do subscribe to all her podcasts because she does bring out some amazing content. So congratulations on your success so far.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I appreciate what you do as well. Just everything that you're facilitating and putting out there into the world. You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. Oh, lovely. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the show, my beautiful people. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next show. Until then, stay blessed, my friends.